Now, welcome to the new episode of Dealroom Exchange. We have here Evgenia Plotnikova, GP of Dawn Capital. Welcome, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you for having me.
Now, can you please talk a little bit about yourself, just very quickly, who you are, what you do, what brought you here to where we are right now, WAICF?
Absolutely. So I'm Evgenia Plotnikova. I'm a general partner at Dawn Capital. Dawn Capital is a B2B software venture capital firm investing in Series A and Series B across Europe to help build global category winners in software and in AI. We've existed for the last 20 years. We're currently investing out of our Fund 5 and we manage about $2.5 billion. As a partner at Dawn, I focus on our data, AI, infrastructure, and automation investments, and I have been doing that for the last decade. What brought me here is precisely that: is my keen interest in AI and how it's changing and shaping the world of today.
Right. This is a really place to be for you, then, I suppose. And so I wanted to ask first of all. So you are a software specialist fund, and what we have seen over the past couple of months is a big public stock sell-off in exactly software and B2B software in particular. So what does it mean for you? How do you see it? Are you worried?
Well, as an investor, I have to be an eternal optimist, and I know people have used a lot of different words for it. I like using the word sassacre. I think it's definitely been a bit of a sassacre in the public markets for sure. And I think, look, it's partially justified, right? If I think about the world of software today, the investors in the public markets haven't fully yet realized what exactly the impact of AI will be on the world of software. And so I think the massive sell-off today is reflective of the fact that we just don't know yet who the winners and who the losers will be. I do think it's a little bit oversold. I think there will be companies in the public markets today that will persist, and there will be companies that will be a little bit more challenged, and the time will still tell what that future looks like. I think what perhaps makes me even a little bit more nervous when further downturn in the public markets is the fact that there's some wonderful companies that are still private today, that are of great value, that have grown to very, very large numbers of revenue, very large numbers of customers, that are still willing to go public. Now, when they go public, I expect that there will be certain PMs and certain institutions that will rotate into those stocks. And so I think we're not yet quite at the bottom of the sassacre.
Okay.
But again, I do think that today it has been undifferentiated in terms of the sell-offs. And there will be companies that will be playing into their competitive advantages, playing into their moats, that will survive and persist. And there will be companies that unfortunately will be the losers of the current technological shift.
Can you give any examples, if not the company names, then at least certain industries, certain type of products that you think will either persevere or succumb to this?
Great question. I think it will be about the speed of adoption of AI by some of those larger businesses and some of those larger corporates today, and fundamentally about some of the structural advantages that they may have. The reality is that as we move from just generative AI into the world of agentic AI, we're still sort of in the very, very early innings of it. A lot that will matter will be context. And so I think it will go beyond just one system of record or one type of data. It will be about broader multi-systems context, behavioral context at times that goes beyond one SaaS application. And so it will be about abilities of some of those broader, perhaps horizontal or even vertical platforms to draw on that context to create meaningful data loops, and create meaningful value in the end.
Mm-hmm. I still don't fully understand, to be honest, what it actually means in practice. Can you perhaps try to give more concrete examples, just
Absolutely.
So even I understand?
No, absolutely. So today, as a journalist, your work does not live in a single system. And so historically, a lot of value that has been created is by you interacting with multiple systems, whether it is with your video editing tool, whether it is with your image editing tool, your email, your phone, a number of different systems, where the moat has been the ability to deliver exceptional UI, very rich feature set for you to interact with. In the future, as building that part of software becomes commoditized and the UI is no longer a moat per se, the value will be in your ability to connect those disparate systems and operate as one. And so it won't be about Andrii using the best-in-class video editing tool. It will be about the ability to pick up between the editing tool, between the email, between the LinkedIn profile that you have to fundamentally deliver an outcome. So the companies that will be able to understand that and to play into the dynamics of the future will be the ones that are standing the chance to win.
And are we talking here about more like the existing players that would have to adapt, or new players that would be sort of the connecting tissue between these different contexts?
I honestly think it is both. We just had a panel today and we were talking about AI bubble, which I think is a very common and natural question to ask. And what I put forward is a different terminology, which is AI wildfire. And it is not about a bubble bursting, it's about the power of technology concentrating, right? And we have seen this before. We've seen it in 2000, we've seen it in 2008. So as AI wildfire bursts through the forest, there will be certain startups, certain shrub that will fundamentally burn because they are unsustainable businesses, because there may not be enough differentiation, there may not be enough moat, but there will be others that will persist, right? If I think about, for example, some of the hyperscalers, candidly, through the different cycles of innovation, a lot of them have emerged only stronger. They're the big trees, they're the oaks in the forest. And candidly, there have been new startups that have been born out of the wildfire, that have learned from the prior mistakes, that have taken advantages of that learning to create big and meaningful businesses. So I think it will be a tale of both, candidly. There will be those that will, like Phoenix, rise from the ashes, and there will be those that will be born anew.
Okay. This is an interesting point of view. Thank you so much for that. And I wanted to move on to another topic that you mentioned in some previous interviews, I believe, about more on the geopolitical, I suppose, level, the trend of deglobalisation that you have been talking about before. So what do you think is this deglobalisation to mean for the market that you are focused on, and for the tech ecosystem in general, especially in Europe, of course?
No, absolutely. I am what people used to call a third culture kid. I've been born and raised in different countries. And so in a way, it almost breaks my heart to talk about deglobalization, because I think for the first time in many, many years, the trend of looking inward is accelerating. I think we're increasingly talking about national sovereignty. We're talking about the state in a way that we haven't before. I think that does affect the investment landscape, and in particular affects the investment landscape because a lot of the innovation today requires extraordinary investment in physical infrastructure, in CapEx, whether it's data centers or semiconductors or candidly all the amount of compute that has to be supported by that infrastructure. And so I think you kind of have to take into account, as you think about even applicative layer, how do those advantages play in? Are they a disadvantage or an advantage in fact, right? What is the dependency on the compute? What is the dependency on supply chain? But in a funny way, it may also create an opportunity, right? If you think about a world that is deglobalizing, it's a world that has additional friction. So I suspect interesting, wonderful businesses may be born out of that friction. Let me give you a very
Europe
real
is great
example.
at friction.
We do well. It's the type of friction that we need to separate. Like certain friction breeds entrepreneurship, right? Entrepreneurs are people that are hungry for problems, identify the problems, and then build upon them. But what we're really bad at is adding additional friction as they are taking off and scaling on their journey. That we should probably remove.
But do you believe that it's actually going to happen? Do you believe that there will be winners emerging thanks to this good friction on this continent?
I don't think that introducing friction in the scaling journey is what breeds fantastic companies. What I think is possible is, as we think about more perhaps AI systems rather than AI platforms, and our ability to create big outcomes in, say, regulated industries like financial services or healthcare, there's certain depth of knowledge of how to operate in those regulated environments, how to create the right degrees of governance and of trust and of security that might play to our advantage, and that might create national or pan-European champions that may be large enough to become big venture outcomes that we seek.
Right. Now that makes perfect sense. And moving forward, another topic that we talk about a lot actually at Dealroom, I think most of our bigger, wider conversations end up touching upon this topic, which is the later stage funding gap that we are seeing in Europe, and the need to crowd in institutional investors and get more pension capital go into the VC and so on. Do you have a take on that? Is this something that you are seeing as well? Because I do believe that you must also witness it very much firsthand with your own portfolio.
It is true that at the very later stages of funding, the opportunities for purely European capital tend to be at times limited. And I wholeheartedly wish that there were more European growth funds. That being said, I don't think there is a geographic monopoly on winning, right? And again, I feel that we should stop a little bit talking about the dichotomy between US and Europe, because I think in the US, they spend very little time thinking about that dichotomy. And so the way for me to think about it is about creating wonderful businesses that global capital wants to invest in, that funds from the US, funds from Asia, funds from all over the world want to back, regardless of where they're located. Because if a company is fundamentally winning and is creating value, it will attract capital. That being said, I do wholeheartedly wish that on the financing side of venture capital and the funds, a greater portion of that capital went into the private markets to help support growth of that ecosystem. Because it is true that while the ecosystem is still in an acceleration phase compared to some of the more mature ecosystems in the world, it is beneficial to have additional capital to help it grow faster.
Yes, exactly. This is exactly the point. I mean, I understand that from the general VC point of view, it doesn't really matter whether it's an American or European fund that invests at a later stage in your portfolio company. But in general, if we look at the ecosystem, if the gains are realized mostly elsewhere, which is right now the case, I think, for most of Europe, this has long-term consequences for the ecosystem, and this limits the growth and the pace of the growth of it.
I would love nothing more than a greater investment into European growth capital, a greater depth of public markets, and a greater ability of our corporate fiber to purchase innovation, whether it is as clients or as potential M&A sponsors.
Do you see any real hands-on ways of making it happen faster?
That is $1 billion question. And I think, unfortunately, big chunks of it come from mentality shift. We all love about talking purchasing stuff that is made in Europe. Whether we actually make that leap of faith is a whole another question. So I think there's certainly a mentality shift there that needs to be orchestrated. And frankly, I don't think it's necessarily about whether something was made, but just taking chance on innovation early enough. And I think that there are perhaps ways that certain governments can support the purchase of innovation, whether it is introducing perhaps certain breaks for companies that are willing to invest in innovation, whether it is as a customer or as an acquirer.
Mm-hmm. Do you see it happening now, like the general procurement of innovation from startups? Is it actually happening more? Is it growing? Is it not?
I think there's a lot of growth in technology budgets in general. I've spoken to a few corporates that are present here, and it was fascinating for me to hear that the budgets for IT in general are growing, which indicates that there's certainly a desire to purchase innovation. What I would encourage the corporates to do is to continue being discerning, but also to make sure that they are taking risks and that they're giving chance to the innovation. It is very easy to fall into the trap of just buying from the large platforms that they're used to. But I think now is the time to seek moats and advantages elsewhere.
Yeah, someone on your panel just now recalled this famous line that no one was ever fired for buying IBM, and
yes.
This is
that was
so. This is exactly Oh, was it you actually saying that? I'm terribly sorry. I was probably looking the other way. And so, do you feel that these and perhaps other issues with the ecosystem as a whole could be aided through policy?
It can be. I mean, the saying of no one's been ever fired for buying IBM is as old as the world, right? So that hasn't changed, right? It hasn't changed through the cloud transition, through the mobile transition, through the social transition. So nothing in that is really new. Mm-hmm. And yes, of course, policy can continue to encourage innovative startups to emerge. But I think it's also about the self-fulfilling prophecy and the network effects of more entrepreneurship in Europe. What I have certainly observed in the last 10 years of early stage investing here in Europe is that success breeds success. the more we have wonderful entrepreneurs here in Europe, the more they come back to the ecosystem, the more the alumni networks work. Let me give you an example. I'm on the board of a wonderful business that was born in France called Detaiku. A lot of people from Detaiku came from Exelite, which was a wonderful French startup that got sold to Dassault Systems early on, that then gave birth to Detaiku and a bunch of others, including Algolia, for example. And out of those startups, there are now increasingly alumni that are coming out, building their own innovation. And so I think that kind of compounding effect of growing ecosystem and the flywheel effect will hopefully persist in the future and help us build bigger and stronger businesses here.
And I think like we're seeing already a little bit of this trend, probably as part of the process of deglobalization, that Europe is looking at weaning itself off US tech. There is this initiative called EuroStack, and there are different more local initiatives as well, with governments trying to say that they will, in 3, 5, 10 years, be fully independent from US technology companies. Do you think this is something that could actually also help European startups?
Absolutely. I mean, my challenge for the policymakers is let's reverse the brain drain. Let's make it very attractive for wonderful European scientists, researchers, developers, operators, and executives and leaders to come back to Europe and build here.
And what do you think would be necessary for that? You talk to a whole bunch of entrepreneurs, like you know what their needs are. What
Honestly, make it easy. It is extraordinarily difficult today to just get set up, frankly. It is quite challenging to get the right visa. It is quite challenging to open a bank account. It is still challenging to, frankly, just even register your business. So I know there's a lot of wonderful organizations like Europe Inc. that are working on standardizing some of that legislation. I think we can do more.
Perfect. Evgenia, thank you so much once again for taking the time. Thanks for your insights, and good luck with what you do in Dawn Capital.
Thank you so much, Andrii. It was lovely to be here with you today.